we've got the CEO of Ford with us right now, right on the back of this. John, Sarah, and Kate joining us. Jim Farley.
Beijing has responded to Donald Trump's apparent U-turn in their escalating trade war.
The automotive industry has been rocked by Ford Motor Company's announcement to close several of its American production facilities and transfer operations to international locations. This strategic pivot follows the introduction of extensive tariffs on international trade partners by recently elected President Donald Trump. The implementation of these comprehensive trade barriers has fundamentally transformed the economics of global commerce, creating substantial challenges for industries dependent on international supply networks and export markets. The automotive sector has been particularly impacted due to its complex global supply chains and reliance on both component imports and vehicle exports. Jim Farley, Ford's chief executive officer, delivered this announcement as more than a mere operational adjustment. It represents a fundamental recalibration of how this iconic American manufacturer positions itself in response to dramatic shifts in trade policy. The tariffs, intended to strengthen domestic industries, have paradoxically created an unsustainable business environment for many multinational corporations. For Ford, a cornerstone of American industrial heritage for over a century, the decision ultimately came down to financial viability. Maintaining production within the United States under the new tariff structure would make their vehicles prohibitively expensive in global marketplaces. By transferring manufacturing operations to regions unaffected by these trade restrictions, Ford seeks to maintain its competitive position and financial stability in a fiercely contested international market. Though specific destination countries weren't detailed in Ford's initial statement, industry experts suggest the company will likely expand its manufacturing presence in Mexico, various Southeast Asian nations, and European regions where trade agreements remain stable and manufacturing costs are advantageous. These locations offer predictable regulatory environments and favorable economic conditions for large-scale industrial operations. The immediate impact of Ford's decision will be felt acutely across numerous American communities. The closure of domestic manufacturing facilities translates directly into thousands of lost employment opportunities. Many towns and cities have been built around these production plants, with generations of families depending on Ford for their livelihoods. The economic reverberations extend well beyond direct employment losses. Local businesses, component suppliers, and service providers that have developed around these manufacturing hubs will experience significant financial pressure. This creates a cascading effect of economic contraction in regions where Ford's presence has long represented stability and prosperity. This development introduces profound uncertainty for these communities, many of which lack immediate alternatives for large-scale industrial employment. The social fabric of these regions, often interwoven with Ford's corporate identity and history, faces an unprecedented challenge. Beyond the immediate human impact, Ford's departure sends a powerful signal to America's broader manufacturing sector. It demonstrates that even the most established and iconic American corporations cannot insulate themselves from the consequences of dramatic policy shifts. This precedent could influence other major manufacturers confronting similar economic pressures, balancing their historical American identity against the financial imperatives of survival in a global marketplace. This tension highlights a fundamental disconnect between national economic strategies and corporate operational realities. While tariffs aim to encourage domestic production and reduce foreign dependencies, they simultaneously restrict access to crucial international markets. Automakers like Ford rely not only on exporting completed vehicles, but also on importing specialized components, often produced more efficiently abroad. The new tariff environment increases the cost of these essential components, ultimately inflating the retail price of finished products. As competitors operating in untaxed markets maintain more attractive pricing, Ford risks losing international market share without this strategic relocation. This geographical shift in manufacturing capacity is expected to influence Ford's innovation ecosystem as well. As production moves overseas, research and development resources may follow, particularly as international facilities become more central to Ford's manufacturing strategy. The United States, traditionally a leader in automotive innovation, risks losing its central position as companies redirect technical resources to countries offering more favorable economic conditions. This migration of intellectual and technological capital could diminish America's standing in the global automotive hierarchy, while potentially slowing domestic advancements in electric vehicle technology, autonomous driving systems, and sustainable transportation solutions. The American automotive supply network will experience significant disruption from Ford's decision. The company has historically sourced numerous components from domestic manufacturers, creating a mutually beneficial ecosystem that supported businesses throughout the country. With assembly operations closing, demand for these American-made parts will decline substantially. This contraction could force many small and medium-sized suppliers to reduce operations or cease activity entirely. The resulting damage to the domestic automotive supply infrastructure may prove difficult to reverse, even if policy conditions change in the future. On Wall Street, Ford's announcement prompted immediate reaction from investors and analysts. Many view the move as a defensive but logical response to an increasingly challenging business environment, while some shareholders interpret this international shift as necessary to protect profit margins and long-term viability. Others express concern about potential reputation damage and political consequences. The company already faces criticism for abandoning its American workforce, raising questions about potential erosion of consumer loyalty, particularly among customers who specifically value American-made vehicles. Ford's brand identity, deeply connected to American industrial heritage, may become contested territory in consumer perception. Politically, this development creates significant complications for the current administration. The tariff program was introduced as a mechanism to revitalize American manufacturing, create domestic employment, and address trade imbalances. The departure of a flagship American automaker directly contradicts this narrative and exposes fundamental weaknesses in the strategy's implementation. The political consequences may extend beyond economic policy discussions and impact voter sentiment, particularly in regions where Ford's exit will be most severely felt. Communities that anticipated industrial revival through protectionist policies now face precisely the opposite outcome: accelerated deindustrialization and economic uncertainty. In the international arena, Ford's decision may encourage other nations to pursue trade alliances that minimize American participation or to implement retaliatory tariffs. The reciprocal nature of international trade relationships means that unilateral barriers often trigger corresponding responses from trading partners, potentially escalating into broader commercial conflicts. Foreign governments may interpret Ford's relocation as evidence of American policy instability, prompting them to direct investments elsewhere and strengthen economic partnerships that offer greater predictability and mutual benefit. This perception could weaken America's position in future trade negotiations, while strengthening alternative economic blocs. The ripple effects within the domestic automotive sector are only beginning to materialize. Other vehicle manufacturers, both American brands and international companies with U.S. production facilities, are now reassessing their manufacturing strategies in light of Ford's decision. General Motors, Stellantis, Tesla, and international brands operating American plants will closely analyze the outcomes of Ford's international pivot. If the strategy proves advantageous, it could trigger similar relocations across the industry, potentially accelerating a contraction of American manufacturing capacity not witnessed in decades. This manufacturing exodus would impact not only vehicle production, but adjacent industries, including industrial tooling, robotics, logistics services, and educational programs that support the broader automotive ecosystem. Ford's international transition may accelerate automation initiatives as the company seeks to offset costs associated with relocation. Substantial investments in robotic assembly systems and digital manufacturing technologies seem likely as new production facilities are established overseas. While these technologies improve efficiency and reduce operational costs, they also limit employment creation in host countries. The traditional model of international manufacturing, creating substantial local employment opportunities, may not materialize at historical levels. Modern automotive production facilities increasingly utilize advanced automation, requiring fewer workers while demanding higher technical skills. The geographical redistribution of manufacturing activities introduces environmental complexities, depending on regulatory standards in recipient countries. If production shifts to regions with less stringent environmental oversight, it could potentially increase emissions and reduce monitoring of hazardous materials. This transition complicates Ford's public sustainability commitments and may invite criticism from environmental organizations that had previously acknowledged the company's ecological initiatives in American facilities. American consumers may experience significant changes in vehicle pricing as manufacturing relocates internationally. Import costs for completed vehicles could increase due to tariffs and logistical expenses, while foreign consumers might benefit from reduced pricing in markets without trade barriers. These price disparities could influence consumer behavior, potentially increasing demand for vehicles not subject to tariffs or possibly reducing overall sales if costs escalate significantly. The pricing shifts could particularly impact Ford's electric vehicle strategy, where affordability represents a critical factor in consumer adoption. Labor organizations have expressed profound disappointment regarding Ford's announcement. For decades, unions like the United Automobile Workers have negotiated with Ford to secure compensation, benefits, and workplace protections for American employees. The closure of domestic facilities represents a significant setback for these efforts and may weaken organized labor's negotiating position more broadly. Without substantial unionized workforces in domestic plants, future contract negotiations may occur from a position of reduced leverage. Additional concerns arise regarding labor standards in overseas production facilities, where regulations may differ significantly from American requirements. Educational institutions and workforce training programs will also feel the effects of Ford's departure. Many technical colleges and vocational schools have developed specialized curricula in partnership with automotive manufacturers, designing programs to meet the specific needs of companies like Ford. With fewer related employment opportunities available locally, enrollment in these programs may decline, leading to reduced funding and diminished institutional capacity. This creates a negative feedback cycle, where fewer specialized workers receive training, further complicating efforts to attract replacement manufacturers to affected regions. The relocation introduces complex logistical challenges, as global supply networks must be reconfigured to accommodate new production locations. Shipping routes, regulatory requirements, and vendor relationships. Delivery timelines may extend, geopolitical risks require reassessment, and the company's capacity to respond quickly to market changes could be temporarily compromised. While modern manufacturing has developed sophisticated tools to manage these challenges through advanced forecasting and digital supply chain management, overseas operations inevitably introduce additional complexities compared to domestic production. As Ford begins its transition to international production, American industrial policy stands at a critical juncture. The pursuit of economic independence through tariff implementation has collided with the realities of global commerce. Whether this approach ultimately succeeds remains uncertain, but the immediate consequence is unmistakable. American manufacturing is undergoing a transformation that will influence the nation's economic trajectory for years to come. Ford's decision to relocate production beyond American borders in response to recent tariff implementation represents more than a corporate adjustment. It signals a profound realignment in how global companies interact with national economic policies. While initial reporting focused on immediate business implications, deeper examination reveals far-reaching consequences, affecting everything from geopolitical relationships to technological development, workforce psychology, and even academic research. In the realm of international economics, Ford's decision illustrates a fundamental reassessment of what defines an American corporation in an interconnected global marketplace. Historically, multinational enterprises operated with an understanding that their national identity carried significance, particularly during periods of economic transition or policy change. Ford, once viewed as an embodiment of American industrial capability, now represents a more fluid corporate identity, one determined more by financial imperatives and market access than by geographical history. This transformation isn't unique to Ford, but its symbolism is particularly powerful given the company's deep roots in American industrial development. The distinction between domestic and international business has become increasingly blurred, with even legacy manufacturers now functioning as genuinely global entities. The relocation provides Ford with expanded opportunities to reconfigure its operations for maximum efficiency across global markets. Rather than maintaining centralized American production hubs, the company can develop specialized manufacturing centers tailored to specific regional markets, producing vehicles for Asian consumers in Southeast Asia, European models in EU-friendly locations, and so forth. This decentralized approach allows Ford to mitigate regional risks, whether economic, political, or environmental, while responding more effectively to local consumer preferences. It also provides access to diverse talent pools, with each workforce offering particular advantages regarding specialization, cost efficiency, and regulatory conditions. Material sourcing flexibility represents another significant advantage. The current American manufacturing model has become increasingly constrained by tariff-inflated costs for essential materials, including aluminum, lithium, and rare earth elements, critical for electric vehicle production. International operations enable Ford to establish direct supply relationships in countries with more favorable access to these vital resources. supporting both profitability and production sustainability. From a corporate governance perspective, the relocation carries important implications for shareholder relationships. Investors have consistently encouraged Ford to streamline operations and enhance global competitiveness, particularly as the company faces growing pressure from nimble electric vehicle startups and established international competitors. This restructuring demonstrates Ford's commitment to prioritizing shareholder value over historical considerations, a position likely to receive positive reception in global financial markets, where profitability and operational efficiency remain paramount. By reducing American operational expenses, Ford can redirect capital toward innovation initiatives, research programs, and digital transformation projects that might otherwise face financial constraints. The educational consequences of this corporate pivot deserve particular attention. University partnerships, engineering development programs, and technical education initiatives often depend on collaboration with major manufacturers like Ford. As the company's physical presence and strategic focus shift internationally, these institutional relationships may deteriorate or reorient toward academic centers in countries receiving Ford's relocated operations. For American students and researchers, this transition potentially reduces opportunities for hands-on experience with cutting-edge automotive innovation. Simultaneously, international universities and technology development centers may benefit substantially, creating a global redistribution of talent development pathways that have historically favored American institutions. This transition will significantly impact regional development planning and infrastructure investment in ways that extend beyond immediate job losses. Manufacturing facilities typically stimulate surrounding economic development, attracting investment in transportation networks, housing development, utility systems, and commercial zones. The closure of major production facilities doesn't merely eliminate employment, it disrupts long-term development trajectories for entire regions. Local governments that had integrated Ford's continued presence into their economic planning now face significant uncertainty. As local tax revenues decline, public services and community programs may face funding challenges, forcing communities to reimagine their economic futures without automotive manufacturing as a foundation. The psychological effect on America's broader industrial workforce represents another critical dimension. For generations, employment with Ford symbolized middle-class stability, offering comprehensive benefits, retirement security, and union representation. This model formed an essential component of the social contract between industrial America and its workforce. With Ford's withdrawal, this framework continues to erode, reinforcing the perception that long-term employment security, even with major corporations, has become increasingly uncertain. This shift may influence worker attitudes regarding employer loyalty, risk tolerance, and confidence in promises of industrial revitalization. These changing sentiments could affect consumer confidence, political engagement, and even entrepreneurial activity as individuals reassess their trust in traditionally stable systems. Ford's relocation decision will likely trigger aggressive recruitment efforts from governments worldwide, eager to attract the company's manufacturing investment. Nations will compete by offering tax incentives, regulatory accommodations, infrastructure support, and workforce development programs to secure these valuable production facilities. This international competition highlights the strategic importance of manufacturing capability in the global influence hierarchy. Countries successfully attracting Ford's operations gain not only employment opportunities, but technological advancement, prestige, and leverage in future trade negotiations. This dynamic could accelerate the formation of new industrial centers, trade relationships, and regional alliances as governments intensify efforts to attract global manufacturing leaders. Ford's international shift may accelerate its technological advancement in several crucial areas. American regulatory frameworks often progress more gradually than international counterparts regarding approval for experimental vehicle technologies, such as advanced autonomous driving systems or vehicle grid integration capabilities. In overseas markets with more adaptive regulatory environments and accelerated approval processes, Ford can potentially test and implement innovations more rapidly. This dynamic could create a situation where technologies developed and deployed internationally exceed those available domestically, not due to capability limitations, but because of regulatory differences. Over time, this could widen the gap between American automotive consumers and global technological developments. From a marketing perspective, Ford now faces the complex challenge of maintaining its identity as a quintessentially American brand, while simultaneously reducing its American manufacturing presence. This tension will require sophisticated communication strategies that emphasize the company's heritage and values, while acknowledging its global manufacturing approach. The company's messaging will likely highlight innovation, safety standards, and environmental leadership, rather than production origin. However, this repositioning may not resonate with all customer segments. Traditional Ford customers who value American manufacturing might explore alternative brands perceived as having stronger domestic commitments, creating potential market share vulnerability that competitors could exploit. Legal consequences are emerging following Ford's announcement. The company's agreements with labor organizations, local governments, and economic development authorities will face close scrutiny. In many instances, state and municipal governments provided financial incentives, including tax reductions, grants, and infrastructure improvements based on commitments to maintain operations and employment levels. The company's withdrawal from these regions may trigger legal challenges regarding contract fulfillment and potential requirements to return public investment funds. These cases could establish important precedents regarding corporate freedom to adjust strategies in response to changing national policies. The insurance and financial sectors are reassessing risk models in response to this development. When major employers exit regional markets, it introduces volatility into surrounding asset valuations, both physical properties and financial instruments. Insurance providers, lending institutions, pension funds, and investment groups are now recalibrating their approaches to regions historically dependent on automotive manufacturing. Supply chain digitalization will likely become increasingly central as Ford reconstructs its production infrastructure internationally. Unlike previous manufacturing relocations that relied on traditional logistics and linear supplier relationships, contemporary global operations require sophisticated technology integration. Ford's new international facilities will likely incorporate artificial intelligence forecasting, blockchain-based traceability systems, and predictive maintenance technologies that anticipate disruptions before they occur. These advanced systems enhance operational efficiency while providing resilience against future geopolitical or economic challenges. Regions losing Ford's manufacturing presence may struggle to implement similar technological advancements due to reduced investment and innovation capacity. Ford's strategic relocation in response to American tariff policies represents a watershed moment that captures the evolving relationship between national governments and global corporations in the 21st century. It highlights tensions between political ambitions and economic realities, while demonstrating the increasing mobility and adaptability of even the most established manufacturing enterprises. As corporations prioritize operational flexibility over geographical heritage, and as governments navigate the consequences of protectionist policies, what emerges is a recognition that industrial strategy has evolved beyond simple questions of factory locations and export figures. It has become a multidimensional challenge involving legal frameworks, technological development, social contracts, and the continuous reconfiguration of global economic influence. Ford's departure from American manufacturing highlights a fundamental transformation in the relationship between government economic policies and corporate decision-making. As the company strategically withdraws from an increasingly challenging business environment, it demonstrates that global corporations now possess unprecedented flexibility to adapt to policy shifts, regardless of historical ties or national identity.